Merry Christmas, everyone. VenomousStare back with the Christmas special. Every year on this channel, I do a game on Christmas, cast an old classic match, and the games that I do on Christmas are a little bit special. I try to pick something that you're going to sort of be able to relate to in a way that you're like, oh yeah, it fills me with warmth in a way the stupid Peanuts cartoon never could. This is an old IdrA game. You know, if you're a fan of this channel, the old IdrA games are sort of the bread and butter. They're the games that I like to do the most. And if you aren't aware, the profile picture of this channel is me and IdrA at MLG Dallas. So IdrA's in the top right here of Lost Temple, and he's facing off against another American player, Kevin QXC Riley. This sort of long-haired, relaxed guy, thoughtful guy. And QXC was an aggressive Terran player. And QXC actually went over to Korea when he was at the peak of his powers. And he's famous for all killing MVP. MVP, of course, a Korean team. And back in the day, there was a Team League, of course, a Pro League, GSTL. And in these team leagues, you know, you have, say, Evil Geniuses versus SKT1, and you send out representatives. Another famous one is like SKT1 versus KT Rolster, right? That's like a famous Pro League rivalry. Well, you send out representatives, and then it's a King of the Hill style where the best guy sort of stays on and tries to all kill. And it's a dream, if you're a pro gamer, to be able to all kill in Pro League. You know, if you win, you keep playing, and you just keep playing until there's nobody left. It's like you're an anime antagonist, and you're laying waste to their entire team until there's no one left. And QXC famously did this to MVP. And MVP, of course, a Korean team. Oftentimes in these pro leagues, it was like there would be one team with non-Koreans, whether it be like FXO partnered with someone or the EGTL. And it would never be straight foreigners. It would always be a mixed team. But the KESPA teams, the Korean-only, like Old Head, SKT1, KT Rolster, these teams, you could tell, really wanted to focus on and reveled in beating the non-Korean team. And the non-Korean teams really struggled in these team leagues. As we can see, IdrA's trying to get a drone scout up into the main of QXC, and he's going to get a Marine out, as you hear my monkey face dog chirping another one of the dogs. Remember, scouting, nearly impossible for Zerg at this time. This is a huge point of contention as a bit of Marine SCV pressure comes out. And remember, this is close positions. A huge crux of the issue of this early Wings of Liberty time period was you could spawn in basically anywhere. So these 4-player maps, close by air, better for Terran, good for drop harass. Cross positions considered standard macro, but then you had this weird close by ground positions, which was definitively awful for Zerg, and made it where essentially the rush distance was so short, where if you decided to move out, even if Zerg had a link right in front of your base, they could not see it, make stuff, and have any of it finished by the time you got there. So to spawn in close by ground like this was awful for Zerg. It's also worth noting that this is Lost Temple. This is a famous and infamous map, an old school Brood War map that sort of got rehashed and brought over to Star 2. And famously, this map has a high ground above the natural. This was one of my favorite maps to play if I'm ever doing custom games with a buddy or like screwing around. If I'm playing 2v2 when someone runs their mouth to me and they play Zerg, I'm like, okay, let's play on Lost Temple. And then the reason you do that is because this absurd high ground over the natural, you just get to drop a tank or a Thor on it if you're Terran. Crucially, IdrA ran in with an Overlord and scouted Armory, Factory, Starport. And Marines are going to try to poke forward here. And the fact that he saw the Armory is huge. This is indicative of Thorship drop. The Thor just macerates Queens. It like 3 shots the Queen. The Queen only had 3 anti-ground range at this time and had worse anti-air range. And crucially, there's no Ravager at this time. So early game Zerg defense way worse. So after seeing that it's Thorship drop, IdrA is going to say, okay, I need to have something on my high ground. And it's very, very difficult, even if you know that it's coming, to prepare for. Because remember, even on close positions, they can just attack you. Like, you can do all this stuff to set up for the high ground, like make all the spines on the high ground. But if they just attack your front door, these spines aren't going to be in position. So a Viking is going to come out and push the Overlord away. This is great by QXC. Remember, you have to have high ground vision to be able to attack stuff up on this cliff. So a core tenet of doing this cliff drop is like if you can get high ground, like sort of air control, and Zerg can't see you, then you're just going to rain hell down upon them. Zerg was in this weird spot where, like, even if they knew it was coming, if you could clear their high ground vision, they couldn't really do anything. This hits before mutas get out and puts you in a brutal position. So here comes the Thorship drop. It's going to hammer away at the Overlords. Remember, you have to have high ground vision, but thankfully these spines are going to be hammered for QXC. Remember, the Thor hard counters the Queen. This was very common. You would run SCVs over QXC, elevatoring stuff up. So another thing about Lost Temple is this weird little gold was right by the high ground, so you could proxy stuff over there, or hide stuff, or elevator things up there. IdrA really trying to get this Viking. He knows the Viking is absurdly irritating. QXC doing a great job of spam repairing the Viking. IdrA with 6 mutas coming though. A lot of Overlords coming here for the macro machine. QXC, his command center only halfway done. Another Thor on the way. So this is like distinctly like a super aggro one base build. Now the Thor counters mutas, but if you do the magic box trick where you spread it out with hold position, the splash doesn't do a lot. So IdrA is going to try to focus down the units here on the high ground. Note that he is killing the SCVs first because the repair would just be a nightmare, and the Viking almost dead. He needs to try to get one shot off on that Viking. He does just that, and he's trying to spread the mutas out, and that's not a manor mule. That is a mule being landed for repair. Very rare as the medevac almost gets sniped down. IdrA in a weird spot where there's a ton of HP up here and he doesn't have many mutas. IdrA fastidiously spreading his mutas out, and now you're at one of the only power spikes you're ever going to have as Zerg, where it's like, he might not have turrets up. Now, almost everyone is going to be making a follow-up Thor for Thorship drop, so you're almost always going to run into a Thor here, and IdrA runs into double Thor, so no power spike to be had. But a lot of times if you clear that Lost Temple high ground drop, the Terran won't have anything at home, and your ability to counterattack will be one of your only chances to win. Remember that part of why the close positions by ground are bad for Zerg is Zerg always wants to sort of be making drones until they're forced not to. And if you're always in a position where at any point you can just move out and sort of walk them over without them having a chance to defend, it's very difficult for them to deal with that. So even though a lot of the crucial parts of the base, like the mineral line, are buttoned up here for QXC, IdrA still wants to run in with the mutas and do what harass he can. Remember, if you just leave a pro gamer completely unperturbed, he's even in the early Wings of Liberty days, he's going to hit his depots, he's going to macro well, he's going to do his thing and get ahead. Another big doom drop being loaded up here, a double drop, one Thor, a bunch of Marines, but it's right into the mutas. IdrA so active with his mutas, and IdrA was up on the north side picking off another medevac. He was up on the north side of the map harassing the armory. QXC probably thought there's no way his mutas are by my high ground. He's almost certainly either north of my main or west of my main, setting up for more muta harass. And remember, no Ignite Afterburners in this era. Ignite Afterburners, the medevac boost, was something that allowed Terran players to really get away with murder a lot of the time and do risky stuff like that. But it looks like IdrA is going to be aggressive. He knows that all this teching that the Terran has done means that there's not many Marines out, and there are less than a half dozen Marines as IdrA crushes forward here, hammering down upon the Thor tank combo. He'll try to get up onto the high ground. Killing the last Thor means that the mutas that he does have left are not going to be splashed down, and QXC GG's. So that's the end of the game. Let's run it back a touch here, as I want to wish everyone Merry Christmas, remind them to like the video and subscribe. The fact that IdrA ran in here and harasses north side means that QXC is sort of sitting there and saying to himself, well, he was just north side and attacked me where I didn't have turrets. He's probably going to attack north again. Usually if a player harasses you somewhere and does some damage, sees there's no static, they're going to go back, right? So ultimately, if you get that sort of harass off, you can double down, and most players always will. That's sort of a core tenet of RTS. If you get successful harass off in one place, or if you get harassed in one place, the guy is going to go back again. In other words, when IdrA attacks this armory and gets it to half and QXC has to pull back, IdrA's not saying like, oh, let me try to attack where I think there will probably be turrets. Like, IdrA knows QXC is going to be buttoned up in the obvious spots. So if you look at the mutas here on the minimap, part of what made IdrA the macro machine and so special was his high APM and his multitask. Even in these sort of low econ, scrappy, close position, lost tempo games, and QXC saying to himself, there's no way the mutas are there, and we can see on the minimap, IdrA literally moved them away as soon as he ran back. Like, QXC brought the Thors over, IdrA was not only macroing, but moving his mutas back over to the natural. Most players would have left him north side and tried to go back in, or moved him westbound and tried to attack westbound, right? Like on the west side of the Terran main. And this is really what made IdrA special. Like, yeah, he was the fastidious, long game macro player, but this was a guy that was at his peak at the beginning of Wings of Liberty when all these maps were god-awful for Zerg and really favored Terran. So he had to be able to know, like, okay, I can hit this weird mid-game pre-Baneling speed timing just because he's gone for so many tech units and he's trying to expand and really rely on turrets. He doesn't have the meat and potatoes of like the Marines that he needs. And when we think about IdrA dominating in an era that was so bad for Zerg, it's interesting to see him win these like close positions, lost tempo games against Thor drop. Like, whenever you think about like stereotypically bad, very difficult to win positions for the Zerg player in this era, close positions, lost tempo is as bad as it gets. And you know, something that I always thought was really interesting was whenever I was asking Select about the finals that he played against IdrA. No, this was Genro, not Select, pardon me. Select lost on a lost tempo game in a finals against IdrA in early MLG. This was me asking Genro about the famous GSL match they played where IdrA went up 1-0 on Zelnaga, and I've covered this on my channel so you can rewatch these VODs in the Gregathon playlist. But then IdrA gets close positions, Shakuras loses, close positions, Metal loses, and then he 6 pools on Jungle Basin and a Marine escapes with 5 HP. The game to be played last was Lost Temple, this map, which was terribly Terran favored and so good for Terran. And I'll never forget what Genro told me. He said that he didn't want it to go to that final game because IdrA's Lost Temple was so good. And I just thought it was like such a novel, interesting, like unique thing to say. That like a Zerg's Lost Temple was like good and to be feared. A Terran player, like a good macro Terran saying that. Like, I didn't want to play him on Lost Temple. Like, it really speaks to how good IdrA was in this early era and how good he was in a macro game, that any solid Terran player who has gone toe-to-toe with Greg could say like, yeah, I didn't want to play him on Lost Temple. If you're Terran, Lost Temple's the map you want to play on. But I thought that was a really cool quote from Genro. Make sure you sub, and Merry Christmas.